Yes, how are we all? I hope all is well. My name is Sachin, and this is the Total Cricket Podcast, episode 18. Today, I'm going to be reviewing the third test between England and South Africa. So let's get started. England won this one by 239 runs. This series has been completely unpredictable. In my preview for this game, I said that South Africa were looking really good and England were in a spot of bother. And now those roles have been reversed. We've had three drubbings in this series, and the teams have just alternated in handing out those drubbings. It's been a bizarre series, really, marked by the inconsistencies of both sides. But let's get into the recap to start with. England won the toss, and they elected to bat in bowler-friendly conditions, kind of similar to what South Africa did in the second test, and it paid off for them. They got 353 and they got there because of two fantastic innings. Alistair Cook, as always, grinding it out. He got 88. And Ben Stokes, he got 112 of 153 in typical Ben Stokes fashion, taking on the bowlers in a fantastic counter-attack. They got some help, a few starts along the way from Tom Wesley, Joe Root, Johnny Bairstow, and a little bit of late order hitting by Toby Rowland-Jones. But really, those two propelled England to that total, a very nice total given the circumstances. Morne Morkel was pretty decent for South Africa. He got 3 wickets. Fern Philander was the pick of the bowlers. He got 2, but he didn't bowl as much as South Africa would have liked. He had the stomach bug. He was carrying it into the game, and unfortunately for South Africa, the gamble with that did not really pay off, and he wasn't able to bowl as much as he would have liked, which certainly weakened the South African bowling attack. Kaiso Rabada, he got 3 wickets, and Keshav Maharaj and Chris Morris, they were a little bit expensive, but they picked up a wicket apiece. South Africa's reply was nothing short of abysmal. They were bowled out for 175, and they were reduced to 7 down with only 61 on the board at one stage. Really, that last session of day 2 really swung this match well and truly in England's favour. The top order for South Africa absolutely capitulated. Themba Bavuma was really the only resistance from the batsman. He got a very gritty 52. And then he got a little bit of support from the lower order with Kaiso Rabada sharing a 50 partnership with him, and also Morne Morkel and Vernon Philander helping him to allow South Africa to avoid the follow-on. And they trailed England by 178 on the first innings. And at that point, you thought there was only going to be one winner. Jimmy Anderson, as usual, doing some serious damage. He picked up 3. Stuart Broad picked up a wicket. Toby Rowland-Jones on debut with a 5-wicket haul. Congrats to him. And Ben Stokes picked up the other wicket. England in the second innings, they just consolidated the lead and built a target that was really always going to be too much for the South Africans to handle. They got to 313 for 8 declared. And in this innings, it was really a case of just getting a move on with it. Keaton Jennings, he got 48. He did get some runs, although he looked very shaky, it must be said. Tom Wesley, he played a nice innings of 59, his first 50 on debut, a good start to him. Joe Root, as he does, with his customary half-century in a game. And then the lower order really killed South Africa. Ben Stokes got a quick 530. Johnny Bairstow, back at number 7, got 63 off 58. And once again, Toby Rowland-Jones down the order with some big blows. He got 23 off the 19. England really just hurtled towards that total, and they ended up setting South Africa a whopping 492 to win the game. So really, at that point, there was only one winner. In this innings, again, Vernon Philander wasn't at his best, obviously, having had the stomach bug. Morne Morkel picked up a wicket. Kaiso Rabada also picked up a wicket. Chris Morris, once again, very expensive. He picked up 2, and Keshav Maharaj picked up 3, but really they were fairly meaningless wickets, all of them, in the context of the game. South Africa's reply, they were given a lifeline by the fact that there had been rain that washed out most of the third day, which gave them a slight sniff of salvaging a draw, but really that was all but brushed aside by the fact that they were 4 down at stumps on day 4. Once again, the top order offering very little resistance. But on day 5, it was Dean Elgar who prolonged the game. He got a magnificent 136 off 228. Pretty quick for Dean Elgar, his 8th Test century. As always with Dean Elgar, a lot of grit. He had a few blows, but he was able to overcome that and really showed the rest of the team how to bat. Once again, Temba Bavuma, he dug in there with 32 and a little bit of resistance as well from the lower order. Chris Morris and Keshar Maharaj both getting 24. But once again, South Africa overwhelmingly disappointing with the bat. 252 all out they were, and nowhere near close to England, nowhere near close to saving this game. Toby Rowland-Jones, he had an absolute ball. He picked up 3 wickets in the innings, which meant 8 for the match on debut. Not to mention those 2 cameos with the bat, an incredible start to his Test career. Stuart Broad, he picked up a wicket, Ben Stokes picked up a couple, and Moeen Ali picked up 4 for including a hat-trick. Unbelievable, a hat-trick to end the match. Ridiculous. It included Dean Elgar, KG Rabada, and then Morne Morkel. The Morne Morkel one was reviewed, which took away from the moment a little bit, it must be said. But nonetheless, congrats to Moeen Ali. The first hat-trick at the Oval, the first hat-trick that included 3 left-handers, and the first hat-trick by an England off-spinner in 79 years. Fantastic stuff, and a great way for England to end the Test and take a lead in the series 2-1, and they retain the Basil d'Oliveira trophy because they won the Winter Tour to South Africa 2-1. So that means that they will at the very least retain the trophy, even if South Africa manage to win the last game. Now let's get into the breakdown, and I'm going to start with England. Now, to me, this game showed just how good Ben Stokes is and how valuable he can be. Ben Stokes is the best all-rounder in world cricket. Shakib Al Hasan is also very good, but his bowling is not impactful in conditions that are not conducive to spin. Ben Stokes can bowl on flatter pitches. We saw him take 11 wickets in the 2 Test series against Bangladesh. He really won them that first game when really they scraped home in that one. He's able to get wickets no matter what the pitch, and he's able to get runs no matter what the pitch. Not to mention he can be amazing in the field. He's the complete package in Test cricket, Ben Stokes. He averages 34, a tick over 34 with both bat and ball. But it's his explosive potential, his match-winning potential with both disciplines that makes him stand out. He has 5 Test centuries and he scores his runs at a strike rate of 63. He changes the momentum of games. With the ball, he has 3 4-wicket hauls and 3 5-wicket hauls. He can win matches with the ball as well. And this game was no greater evidence of Ben Stokes' match-winning ability. We saw him, England after the first day, the game was pretty level. They were about 160 for 4 after the first day. But Ben Stokes took the match in their favour with that incredible 100. And once again, with the ball, he also did damage. I think if you look particularly at the second innings, how he was able to get rid of Quinton de Kock and Faf du Plessis in successive deliveries, that broke the back of the South African rearguard. You know, Faf du Plessis, we all know what he can do when your team is scrapping for a draw. So we saw Ben Stokes' match-winning ability with the ball as well in this game. He is the complete package. A lot of people say he's overrated. You can't be overrated when you can win the ball. You can win a game with either discipline. That kind of asset is invaluable in Test cricket. It's hard enough to be able to do that in limited overs, but doing that in Test cricket, it takes a special cricketer. And that is what Ben Stokes is. And that is the amazing asset that England have. And we've seen that Ben Stokes' quality has been able to overshadow the shortcomings of the English lineup. Now, you look at the rest of the team in this game, Alistair Cook was fantastic. He got 88 of 200 in the first innings, a typical Alistair Cook innings. He held the innings together before Stokes came in and did his thing. Alistair Cook, again, a lot of people don't really take him very seriously because of the way he scores his runs and because of the fact that he's just completely unglamorous. He's not some amazing personality, but what he does is invaluable to the English team, and he's a proper Test match opener. He weathered the storm on that opening day of Morne Morkel and Vernon Philander in particular. Vernon Philander on that opening morning was nearly unplayable. He was able to weather that storm and allow England to be in a position where they could get a decent score. He overtook, I think it was, who was it? He overtook, I'm trying to remember now who it was. I can't remember who he overtook, but he became the 9th highest scorer in Test history. And I have no doubt that by the end of his career, he'll be number 2, because he only needs another 2.5 thousand runs to overtake Ricky Ponting, who's number 2. I doubt he'll overtake Tendulkar because that's 5,000 runs away. It would appear that that is highly unlikely. But Alistair Cook is a fantastic player. There's no doubt about it. It's difficult to talk of him in the realm of those players in terms of his quality, just his quality, because one, his average is lower than most of them, and two, obviously all those players were all really better to watch than him. The Dravids, the Sangakaras, the Pontings, the Kallises, the Tendulkars, they were all better batsmen, you could say, in the true art of batsmanship than Alistair Cook. But no one can deny Alistair Cook's achievements in the game. He is really an incredible cricketer and demands respect, I feel. Now, the rest of England's batting, once again, this England batting lineup, it's not very strong, really. There's a lot of weaknesses, and that it was exposed in the last game, but Cook and Stokes' brilliance really helped to overshadow them. Keaton Jennings, again, he was very poor. He got an absolute working over by Vernon Philander in the first innings. And in the second innings, he was dropped early on, and he was given out, but reviewed it, and he had that life. And really, he looked very, very poor in the second innings until he was eventually out for 48. He doesn't look good. There's a simple fact about Keaton Jennings. He got 100 on his Test debut, but he was dropped on naught. What if he had been caught there? He would have no scores of even 50 in his Test career. He's played 8 innings, and he only has 1 score above 50. Now, that to me is nowhere near good enough. And really, this last game, this 4th game, would appear to be his last chance, because he just looks very tentative. He looks unsure of himself at the crease. Compared to Alistair Cook, you don't see the same authority with his footwork and his stroke play. It's all very tentative with Keaton Jennings. And it's definitely last chance saloon, in my opinion, for him in the 4th game. Tom Wesley was a good debut for him, coming in straight away into the cauldron at number 3. And to me, he looks a very stylish batsman, certainly really aesthetically pleasing, his shots. The one thing about him is I don't know how technically proficient he is. He looks a tad loose in that sort of, he's very stylish, but it's almost like, is it too much style, not enough substance with Tom Wesley? Obviously, in the second innings, the pressure was off a lot and he got a nice 50. But it will be interesting to see how he develops, how he goes in the next game, because clearly he has a wide range of strokes. But my question is, at number 3, a very difficult position to bat, does he have the technical quality to withstand the bowling more often than not? That's a question that will have to be answered later, but certainly the signs are positive for him to begin. Joe Root, as he does, gets a 50 pretty much every Test match. And really, what can you say about Joe Root? He's a fantastic player. And really, I guess all you could say is that he does have a tendency to get caught behind, whether it's, going for a big booming drive or just being caught behind does seem to be a very common dismissal for Joe Root. But then again, what batsman isn't susceptible to high quality seam bowling and nicking off? Sometimes it's almost impossible to avoid against a guy like Vernon Philander. So I don't really hold that against Joe Root in this one. Dawid Malan, he didn't have a great debut, coming in at number 5. He got just the 1 in the first innings, clean bowled by an absolutely brilliant Yorker by Kahisa Rabada. And then he only got 10 when England were looking for quick runs, to be fair, so he was trying to get a move on. But really, for him, not a good start to his Test career. And when I look at Dawid Malan, the funny thing about him is that he averages more in List A cricket than first-class cricket. I think his List A average is 42, and his first-class average is 38, which is quite bizarre for a player who has been selected into a Test team and bear in mind he hasn't played a one-day international for England, to be selected for the Test team to have a better average in List A cricket, i.e. 50 over cricket, compared to first-class cricket. And really that shows that he's been picked off his prowess in the white ball game. He had a great debut in the 2020 side. In the third 2020 between these teams, he got 70 odd, I think. I feel like his white ball reputation has got him into the team here. The question has to be over his technique. Obviously, testing conditions that he's come in against world-class bowlers, but certainly he didn't look great in this one, and he may face the axe in the next game, because I don't think Trevor Bale is a particular fan of having 8 batsmen. Stokes and Moeen Ali give you that luxury of being able to play the extra bowler. So I think that certainly he might find himself on the outer, which would be a bit harsh, no doubt, but certainly didn't look great in this game. Johnny Bairstow, it was great to see him back at number 7. I said that's his best position. He averages 30 at number 5, averages 45 at number 7. It's a no-brainer, and he did really well with 2 nice counter-attacking innings in this one. When they were setting up the target, he just blew South Africa away with a quick 550, and he looked really good in this game, Johnny Bairstow. He's a class player, and certainly number 7, I feel, is his position. And it was good to see him there, and hopefully that continues for Johnny Bairstow. Now, in this game, Moeen Ali didn't do too well with the bat, although to be fair, he came in really in the second innings. They were just looking for quick runs. A bit of a bizarre run out. Lazy from Moeen Ali. It didn't look like he fully extended trying to get back into his crease in the first innings. Not much to say there either. Moeen Ali, he has that tendency to really flash. He's not one to really leave the ball, or he's always going to go after his shots, and sometimes he gets out flashing, or he'll get out playing the pull shot. That's what he does. But then other times he's going to get you a really nice 100. When you have a guy who's capable of getting you hundreds at number 8, I think that's pretty decent. Toby Rowland-Jones as well, he looked pretty decent with the bat, continuing England's recent tradition of having a really long tail, a couple of nice 20s, and yeah, I think it's really handy to have a guy like that who can frustrate the opposition bowling and bat with the established batsmen to help pile on the play, because that kind of stuff psychologically really shifts the momentum of the game. And I think that's what it did. So England's batting, for me, it still has holes in it. They're so reliant in the top order on Alistair Cook and Joe Root. There are definitely question marks throughout that top order, as there have been for a long time. They've tried a lot of players over the last few summers, and none of them really cemented their place as that opening partner to Alistair Cook, the number 3 and the number 5. They're really no closer to solving those issues. But really, their success seems to be dictated by how well the all-rounders bat. So that's Ben Stokes, Johnny Bairstow, and Moeen Ali. When those guys come to the party with the bat, England really do well, because often they're in a little bit of a spot of bother with their top order. A typical 100 for 3 scoreline, you'll see England. But if their middle order, lower order really wags, gets them up to that 300, 350, that puts them in a really good position. And that, to me, is what wins them games at the moment. But they can't rely on those 3 all-rounders every game. So they definitely need to strengthen that top order. But it was good to see them show a bit of application, particularly on that first day in trying circumstances. Alistair Cook led the way in grafting it and making sure that they didn't collapse. After the shocking showing in the second game, it was good to see them really have some proper test match batting. And what better person to lead the way than Alistair Cook? And that's what England need to do consistently now. They need to apply themselves. I think apply yourselves at the top, and it allows these free-scoring players like Ben Stokes, Johnny Bairstow, Moeen Ali to flourish down the order. That's what England need to do with the batting. Now, England's bowling in this game, I think they did a really good job. They cleaned up South Africa. South Africa made it quite easy for them, it must be said. But Toby Rowland-Jones, we have to start with him. He took 8 wickets on debut, a dream debut for Toby Rowland-Jones. And if it wasn't for Ben Stokes, he would have certainly been man of the match in this one. Toby Rowland-Jones, he doesn't bowl quick, bowls about 125, 130, but what he is he's accurate in that Vernon Philander mold. He'll just nag away on that length. He's tall as well, so he gets a little bit of bounce. And to me, he's definitely pushed himself above a guy like Jake Ball in the pecking order, potentially above a Mark Wood. And really what I liked about his bowling was the fact that he was threatening both edges. You saw that he was able to get LBWs and he was able to get people caught behind the wicket. When you're able to challenge the batsman on both edges of the bat, you are a very threatening bowler. So I like what I saw from Toby Rowland-Jones. Do I think now that this propels him ahead of Chris Woakes in the pecking order? Probably not. Chris Woakes is a better batsman, and he was excellent for England in the last home summer. But I think definitely he'll get more opportunities. Certainly, I think we'll see him playing the next game at least. So that's another opportunity for him to shine. But I think what this has done is it's booked him a place on the plane to Australia for the Ashes, because I think he's leapfrogged Jake Ball in the pecking order, and I think you could argue he's leapfrogged Mark Wood already. Then there's Stephen Finn, who's just always there and thereabouts, but we know Stephen Finn with his inconsistency. But I think Toby Rowland-Jones is something that's quite replicable, and certainly he's a nice complement to Stuart Broad and Jimmy Anderson. I like what he offers. So certainly I think Toby Rowland-Jones gave himself a good opportunity to be in the England side in the future. I like what I saw. Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad, what can you say about these guys? They've been doing this for over a decade now. I think people take for granted just how good this opening duo is. They're the best opening duo of the last decade, hands down. The longevity they've both had is amazing, and the way they've still been able to succeed, even though they don't bowl quick, they just always find ways to take wickets, and they're masters of their craft, Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad. And certainly England will hope that they can go on for as long as they can. Two world-class bowlers that England, they never have to worry about their opening bowlers because of those two. Now, I've already talked about Ben Stokes with the ball, what an impact he can have. Moeen Ali. Now, I talked about after the first game how Moeen Ali is the most underrated cricketer in world cricket. I think this game exemplified that even further. This guy took a hat-trick, and I don't think people still really think he's a good bowler. He took a hat-trick, the first hat-trick by an England off-spinner in 79 years. And I think not many people think it's a big deal. This guy is such an unassuming character. He can look so average at times with both the bat and ball, but when he's on point, he's a very good cricketer. And obviously, this guy is not really an elite off-spinner, but the job he does cannot be underestimated. He's a decent off-spinner. Is he going to win you a game on his back? More often than not, probably not. Although he did show he took 11 wickets in the first game. So couldn't you argue that that is winning the game on his own back? This guy continues to defy the limitations that people have put on him. He's a very solid all-round cricketer, an incredible asset when you have a guy just like Ben Stokes who can score test hundreds and take big bag full of wickets. You've got a really quality player. I think the reason he's not an elite spinner is that if you go to Asia and you put that extra pressure on him to carry the attack without the help of the fast bowlers, he showed that he's probably not that good because he struggled in the winter tours to Bangladesh and India. Obviously, it helps when he's behind this kind of high-quality fast bowling. But he's a very, very decent cricketer, Moeen Ali, and England really should be thankful that they have him. So that wraps up England for this game. A good game for them. Obviously, they've still got some shortcomings, but the brilliance of Stokes was really able to mask those shortcomings, I felt. And I think now, for England, they need consistency badly. They need consistency, and they need to hope that those guys in the top order can cement their places, because that has been a perennial struggle for them. They really need to shore up that top order heading into the Ashes. And now on to South Africa. What can I say for South Africa in this game? How poor they were after how great they were at Trent Bridge. Now, the batting, Dean Elgar, what a batsman he is. This guy is very underrated as well. He averages 40 in Test cricket. He's got 8 centuries. And he's got 4 centuries in the last 9 months, 5 in the last 6 series South Africa have played. He's very consistent. And the thing about Dean Elgar is, we know, he's not pretty. He's probably never played a good-looking stroke in his life. How many times do we see Dean Elgar squirt the ball through the third man region? His bat face never comes down straight. It's always wonky. It's just bizarre. You think, how does this guy score runs? But really, it's his sheer determination. It's his character that he just will not give up his wicket. He refuses to, and that kind of mindset, I think, is what a lot of players in modern Test cricket lack. And he's an example to all Test openers, really. You don't need to be the most skilled player, but a lot of it is mindset and how you apply yourself with the bat. He did a really nice job. In that second innings when South Africa basically had no chance, how he dug deep against high-quality fast bowling, it was a joy to watch. Heino Kuhn, well, he did a good job in the last game, as I alluded to in the first innings, but he didn't kick on in this game, and he looked mediocre. He doesn't look like someone who's going to score big runs at the test level. And really, it doesn't look like a partnership that's going to last long. I think Aiden Markram is going to get a go after this series. I think it would be a bit reckless of South Africa to just push Aiden Markram into this last game. I don't think it's the right timing, but I think Heino Kun is pretty much out of the team now. I just feel when he's 33 and you're not performing, you're not going to get as much of a leeway, as much slack as a 22-year-old. So to me, I just see that his time has run out. Now, Hashim Amla, he's been an enigma for a while now. This guy has just not delivered away from home in test matches for a while. I had great hopes that he would return to his best after the Trent Bridge game. He got 2 50s in that game, and he looked really fluid. But in this game, 2 failures, and Hashim Amla really reverting to what has been the norm now for him in overseas series, where he has struggled greatly. He struggled against India in India. He struggled against Australia in Australia. He struggled against New Zealand in New Zealand. And now he's struggling in England for the most part. I think it was either he hasn't scored a test century away from home in his last 26 innings, I believe. That's a long time without a test century away from home. And Hashim Amla, I'm torn. Is this a terminal decline? He's not that old. He's only 32, 33. But he's really struggling. Obviously, he's never been one to use his feet a lot, but he's getting caught on the crease. He's just looking very susceptible against the moving ball. I'm not sure what to make of it. I think that dropping him is still, it's way too early to suggest that, but I just don't know what to think of Hashim Amla because he's playing the way that he's always played. He's been successful with this style. It's just that recently he's had a horrid patch of form, but I really hope that he can turn it around because he's such a good player to watch. And hopefully he can get out of this drought for South Africa's sake. They need him. Now, Quinton de Kock, he's continued to bat at number 4, really to mask the issues that the South African batting is facing, and he failed in this game. A rarity for Quinton de Kock to fail twice in a match. Now, before, I think after the first game, I said I'd like Quinton de Kock to continue batting at 7. Then he had a really nice innings at 4 in the second game, and I thought, okay, well, I was wrong on that. But my reasoning for him staying at 7 was that the bowlers would be a bit more tired and the ball would be softer and would be doing less. And coming in at 4 with a guy like Kun and the form of Amla, he's coming in quite early. He's facing the brand new ball, fresh bowlers in the first session. Is it the most optimal time for a guy like Quinton de Kock to be batting? Is it making the most of that asset? I wonder if this is going to work in the long term. Now, again, I don't think we can now say after this game he can't bat at number 4. But I'm interested to see what happens next game because I think definitely the jury's still out on whether this is the best position for him. We'll certainly have to watch this space because he found it very difficult against the moving ball, as you do naturally. Now, Faf du Plessis, this was a really bizarre game for him. He got out twice LBW, not offering a stroke, really rookie errors. You would have thought after the first innings he wouldn't make the same mistake, but incredibly, first ball he pads up in the second innings, and the same thing happens. It was incredible. And in this game, Faf, I talked about Faf after the second game, how everything he touched turned to gold in that second game. Well, in this game, unfortunately, it didn't work out for him. With the bat, he wasn't great. And obviously, I think that they made a decision with Vernon Philander. He was coming into the game with a stomach bug, and they thought he's too big an asset to leave out, even if he's 50-60% fit. We'll give him a go, and they hoped they could win the toss and bat first to give him an extra day to recover. That didn't happen, so it really backfired on them. And without that really able bowler, they had to bowl Chris Morrismore, who really struggled. So that decision certainly backfired for Faf du Plessis. He's been ultra aggressive with his captaincy, and basically everything has come off for him so far. So this is really the first thing that's really backfired on him. And to me, if you want to hear my thoughts on the whole injury placements argument, then you can check out episode 16. But really, for Faf, this was probably too much of a gamble. Too far. This was not a tactical gamble. This was a gamble on a guy's health, and it really didn't pay off. So not a great test match for Faf du Plessis, but that doesn't mean he's a bad captain or a bad batsman. It's just a really, really bad game for him. There's nothing else to be said. Temba Bavuma. Now, Temba Bavuma, once again, when the going gets tough, he gets going. my frustration with Temba Bavuma is that he doesn't score the runs when South Africa are dominating. He only seems to score when they're in a complete mess. And he was fantastic in the rearguard action he made in this game. He's got a sound technique. He's very patient at the crease. He applies himself, but he also has the shots to score runs. With Temba, he still averages 32 in Test cricket. He only has 1 century after 22 games, 850s. That's not a good conversion rate. And Bavuma, you see it time and time again. He'll score his runs when South Africa are under pressure, but it's amazing. He doesn't score when they're dominating. They dominated Sri Lanka at home in that series, and Temba Bavuma couldn't score a run. It was incredible, and it's bizarre to see a guy who usually you see people who score when it's easy, when the team's dominating, but they struggle under pressure. Bavuma's the complete opposite. It's just so weird. For Temba to take the next step, he has to become more consistent. He has to be a guy who can score no matter what the situation, because he's an asset to this team. He's a fantastic fielder and he's a gritty batsman, but he needs to provide more with the bat more often, I think. But nonetheless, we all know what Temba Bavuma is about. Certainly a good asset for South Africa. Now, let's segue into the South African bowling, and we'll start with Chris Morris. Now, Chris Morris in this game, to me, question marks about whether he really is a Test cricketer. I think with the bat, he's a guy that he probably doesn't have the greatest technique, but he can score runs. He has big levers and he can hit the ball a long way. Certainly, he can score runs, but can he be a Test match batsman? I think the fact that Vernon Philander bats ahead of him is probably an indictment of his technique, because really his class as an all-rounder, but he bats at 8 in this team. But I think what was most disappointing about Chris Morris was his bowling. He was very expensive in both innings. And to me, you just can't have a guy who's bowling like that in these kind of bowler-friendly conditions. It's going to give that release to the batsman. It takes off a lot of pressure. Chris Morris, the way he bowls, he's not a line-and-length bowler. He's an impact bowler. He's a guy who bowls that wicket ball. He's always searching for the wicket ball, Chris Morris. So you don't see the consistency in his bowling. He's just bowling quick, and he's trying to take wickets. There's no real sort of consistency. He's sort of the opposite to Vernon Philander as a bowler. And in this game, it didn't work out. And I wonder, long-term, is he good enough to really be in this team? Or would South Africa be better off either A, putting Vernon Philander back to 8 and playing an extra batsman, or would they be, particularly when Dale Steyn comes back, go with a 4-pronged pace attack and Keshav Maharaj, given the fact that Vernon Philander has had problems with fitness, Morne Morkel has had injury problems, Dale Steyn has had shoulder problems, that they would want an extra bowler. I think Chris Morris, definitely question marks over his long-term Test career. Keshav Maharaj, obviously the pitch wasn't very effective for him, but nonetheless, he still took 4 wickets in the game. Such is his quality as an off-spinner. Really, this guy's a fantastic bowler. Wasn't able to quite do the holding job in this game, but certainly he is really South Africa's best spinner, possibly ever. And the guy has never played a Test in Asia. He's never played a Test in what you would consider helpful conditions to spinners. And to have the record he has where he averages 25, 26 with the ball, he's a top-class spinner. And South Africa have definitely solved a long-term issue in Keshav Maharaj. Now, I talked about the Vernon Philander backfiring. He still bowled beautifully. He was next to unplayable. I mean, Vernon Philander in these conditions, when he's just nipping it both ways and he's putting it on a coin, basically, on that length, he's nearly unplayable and a joy to watch. And it was a big blow that he wasn't at his best, and he was only able to bowl 5 overs in the second morning, because that was a pivotal time. The game was evenly balanced after the first morning. The fact that he wasn't able to bowl a lot allowed Ben Stokes to get away a bit as well. So no doubt Vernon Philander is so crucial to the South African team, and hopefully he can be bat fit for the next game. Kagiso Rabada, for me, continued this trend of he still takes wickets. He took 4 wickets in this game, but he hasn't looked at his absolute best since Australia. I think when you look at his Test career, how good he was against England at home, that's when he burst onto the scene, then Australia. But then, since then, in the New Zealand series, I know he got a bag full of wickets against Sri Lanka, but I remember the first game at Port Elizabeth, he was certainly off. And this series now, he hasn't looked at his absolute best. He hasn't had, I feel, the electricity to his bowling that he had when he was at his best. I feel like there are times when he's coming in and it's not doing a lot for him. And there are times when he's a bit erratic and he's a bit wayward with his bowling. Such is the quality of Rabada that he still takes wickets. But I just have a feeling he's not quite at his best. And I wonder whether it's because he's done so much bowling. He's such a young guy, he's still only 20, 21, I think now, that he's had so much bowling that maybe his body is a little bit fatigued because he hasn't. The thing with him is that apparently he didn't bowl a ball between these two test matches because he's playing so many games. South Africa want to keep him as fresh as possible, but perhaps it's this every time he's bowling, it's high intensity. He doesn't get to bowl a little bit, lighter intensity, and he doesn't get a lot of breaks. He's constantly bowling, is affecting him. But I do feel that he's not quite at his best. Although I must say that Yorker to David Milan, that was classic Kaiser Rabada, just unbelievable to watch him at his sheer best. Now, Morne Morkel, I thought he was so difficult to handle. Morne Morkel, he gave Alistair Cook a real working over. I mean, Morne Morkel, when he goes around the wicket to the left-hander, and he just puts that ball there with the height he has, the bounce he generates, he puts that ball there and then nips it away, beats the outside edge. He's incredible. The way he worked over Alistair Cook in the second innings was something else. He's a fantastic bowler to left-handers. And Morne Morkel is a class act. I think that he hasn't skipped a beat since he hasn't taken a bag full of wickets, but I think he's bowled really well since his comeback. And he's definitely still an asset to South Africa, despite he's getting on in age now, well into his 30s. He's still such a terrific asset to South Africa. And really, I think definitely still got a few more years in him. So it's good to see that he's still going. For South Africa's bowling, really it's a case of making sure everyone is fit and firing at their absolute best. I want to see KG Rabada at his best. I want to see Vernon Philander at full fitness. And I want to see Chris Morris bowl like he did at Trent Bridge. If they can do that, they'll have a much better chance in the last game. And really, for South Africa, the problem for me as a team as a whole, is their batting. And for so long now, ever since the departure of Cullis and Smith and AB de Villiers leaving the team, basically retiring from Test cricket, their batting has struggled greatly. And it's been their bowling that has won them a lot of games and allowed them to still be a very successful Test team in this time. But you look at the Trent Bridge game even, it was their brilliance with the ball, because you look at their batting, they got a decent total in the first innings, they got over 300, and then the bowling did the rest. The bowling demolished England. Their bowling is their trump card, and when the bowling doesn't quite click, they can't win because their batting is not producing big scores. They're not getting enough 350 plus scores that you need to really put yourself in a good position. And South Africa have certainly got problems with the bat. The batting lineup looks very, very shaky, really. Heino Kuhn on his last legs. Hashim Amla, can he get out of this rut? Quinton de Kock, is he the long-term number 4? Faf du Plessis, can he use his bat? Themba Bavuma, can he score when the going isn't tough? Really, the only guy I look at the moment who's just, what you're going to get from him is Dean Elgar. And South Africa have a lot of question marks, definitely. But one thing we know about South Africa is they're certainly capable of winning the next game. And that's what I'm going to talk about now quickly, because again, the fourth test starts in 2 days' time. That will start on the Friday, the 4th. And, well, for South Africa, they have to win this game, simple as that, to salvage a draw in the series. And looking at the two teams, for South Africa, they just need to get Vernon Philander fit. I think Heino Kuhn will get a last chance. I think it would be a bit harsh on Hayden Markram to thrust him in at this stage of the tour. But apart from that, I don't see, are they going to change Chris Morris up? Perhaps could they give Andile Petlekwayo a go, who is a similar type player? I don't know, again, a debut in a last test match. Seems like it's a bit of a lose-lose situation for the debutant. So I'm not too sure about that. But certainly South Africa, it's going to be about mindset change with the bat. Because with such a short turnaround, you can't really do a lot of skill work. They're going to have people who put their hand up with the bat. Because otherwise, it's going to be another long game for South Africa if the batting doesn't click. So really for England, I think Tom Leslie will get another shot. Now, David Milan, will he get another goal? Will he be out after one game? Trevor Bayliss talked about the fact that they could, at Old Trafford, potentially bring back Liam Dawson and get another spinner into the team, because they already have enough batsmen, really, because if you took out David Malan, you can just shift Stokes, Bairstow, and Moeen Ali up. Johnny Bairstow still averages 45 at number 6, so I'm still fine with him batting there. And really, again, as I said, with Stokes, Bairstow, and Ali, they can afford to almost play a guy like Liam Dawson, who you don't necessarily expect a lot of impact from, but such is the luxury of having these all-round cricketers. Now, for me, Liam Dawson, really, I don't think he's a good Test cricketer. I just think he's a bits and pieces cricketer. He's not a guy who's going to take wickets with the ball. He's a defensive spinner who can get carted at the end of the day, which is not very good. That's not what you want. As a batsman, he doesn't look like a guy who's going to consistently score runs at the Test level. So, to me, Liam Dawson, he's not a great selection, but as I said, the all-round quality of England allows them to play him a bit of a luxury selection. Toby Rowland-Jones, I'm sure, will keep his place. Stephen Finn is back in the squad. He's officially replaced Mark Wood, although I doubt he will have a sniff of getting into the team after Toby Rowland-Jones' performance. Keaton Jennings, I'm sure, will get one last chance. It would be a bit difficult to drop him. They were saying potentially that Tom Wesley might move up to open, but again, does he look technically proficient enough to be an opener? I'm not sure. I think you're better off almost just bringing in Haseeb Hameed or Mark Stoneman for the West Indies series, just on a clean slate. I wouldn't want to tamper with that and add even more stability to the team by changing that. So I think probably David Malan's going to be the guy to drop out for England. But again, for England, it's solving that mystery in the top order, because that's going to help them win a lot more games, be a lot more consistent if that top order can apply themselves properly and get consistent runs, and they not have to rely on the lower order to get them out of trouble every game. But that's it for my short little preview of the game at Old Trafford, the fourth and final game of the tour. I have absolutely no idea who's going to win this one. I guess South Africa, if you look at the pattern of the game, but really both these teams have the quality to win the game and the inconsistency to lose the game. So really, it's anyone's game. It's certainly going to be intriguing to see this game. But that's it for me talking about England, South Africa. Just to finish off the podcast, a few news stories that I want to talk about now. The WBBL and the BBL, so those are the franchise 2020 competitions in Australia. The fixtures have been announced, and the BBL has expanded in terms of matches, not in terms of teams. There's still 8 teams, but now each team will play 2 more matches, which means 8 more matches in total. And so now the tournament has gone from 6 weeks long to 7 weeks long. And sort of CA's reasoning behind this is each team gets 1 extra home game, and they want to take the game to new markets. So away from the traditional home grounds. For example, the Hobart Hurricanes will play that extra home game in Launceston, and they are hoping that other teams follow suit. And really, that's what they say, but ultimately it's about money. Generating more money, more games equals more money. It's really not very difficult to figure that one out. So each team will play 10 games in the BBL. It's a bit of a strange format. You play each team once, but then you play 3 of the teams twice. It's very strange, and it creates an imbalanced schedule. That a bit of it is the luck of the draw of who you play twice, who you play once. So it's a bit of a strange draw. But that's that from the BBL. The WBBL, the same format's going to be there. So each team will play each other twice. So you'll have 14 games in total. And again, like last season, there'll be a lot of games in these different markets, like places like, for example, Hurstville Oval, North Sydney Oval. They'll go to the Allan Border Field, all these places like that. And that's about it for the WBBL, as has been the case. You have the semi-finals for both competitions. They're on the 1st and 2nd of February. Those are Thursdays and Fridays. And then the finals will be played on the Sunday, the 4th of February. And as they have been, they're going to be double headers. So you'll have the WBBL game as the curtain raiser to the BBL game. Now, what I found interesting about this is that the WBBL, still not every game is going to be televised. You're only going to have 12 games televised. Now, I think last year it was 10 or 11, so really that has not increased the television coverage of the WBBL. And when you have a look at the games that are being covered, 4 of them are from the first week on the 9th and 10th of December. Those games are at North Sydney Oval. So it's a bit of a gala weekend where each team will play one game. There'll be 4 games at North Sydney Oval, 2 on the Saturday, 2 on the Sunday, and those will be broadcast. And the good thing about those is that the BBL hasn't started, and that's in between the second and the third Ashes test. So that's a window where you've just got the WBBL to really increase the exposure there. Obviously, you'll have the semis and the finals that are going to be televised. What I found weird was if you have a look at the official site, that the semi-finals for the WBBL are going to be on Network 10's secondary channel, which is One. It's called One, and basically that means that they're not confident of getting a good audience for those games, which is quite bizarre that they put the WBBL on their secondary channel, but then they put the BBL on their main channel. And it's weird because the WBBL game isn't in prime time television slots. The WBBL game would be probably starting at 1 or 2 o'clock and going till around 4:35 in the afternoon. That's not primetime television. So to me, that's a really bizarre decision. Obviously, also, if you look at it, really, they're only doing games at major venues, and they're only really doing games that are double headers before the men's games. So really, for Network 10, the games still as a standalone are not going to bring in enough eyeballs. So just standalone BBL games that there is no BBL game after that is played at perhaps a smaller venue. Those games are just going to be live streamed on the Cricket Australia official website. So hopefully we get to the stage where they can televise those games. At the moment, in the women's game development, obviously television companies don't want to branch out that far. They still need the game to basically be a curtain raiser to the BBL game to bring in enough eyeballs. So hopefully we can get to the stage in the near future where standalone WBBL games are lucrative enough to be televised on their own. But certainly it is good that at least some games are being televised, and it should be a good competition. The WBBL and the BBL are pretty good competitions. I think they are probably in terms of the women's game, it's probably the biggest 2020 competition, and the men's game it's probably the second biggest after the IPL. So certainly there'll be a lot of eyeballs on this competition, and it will be interesting to see how it goes. Now, the final piece that I want to talk about today is news that Afghanistan could be about to play their maiden test match. Now, this could be historic. Now, apparently, that this may happen later in the year against Zimbabwe, where they have a full bilateral series against Zimbabwe. That Afghanistan would be the host team, but obviously it would be played in either India or the UAE. Now, apparently this will comprise of 1 test, 5 ODIs, and 2 to 3 2020s. Now, this would be great for Afghanistan to start their test journey, and it's good for Zimbabwe because they need to play more cricket. It's as simple as that, and I think it's good for both sides. The interesting thing is that Afghanistan and Zimbabwe have played each other in bilateral ODI series in each of the last 4 years. Afghanistan have never lost a bilateral series to Zimbabwe. The last 3 of them, in fact, have ended 3-2 to Afghanistan, and the first one was 2-all. So you can see that both these teams are very evenly matched. So it should be a very interesting series. My only problem with this is why only 1 test? When you think about it, both these teams are going to find it difficult to get test cricket from bigger teams. We see how hard it is for Zimbabwe, and they've been playing test cricket for 25 years. Imagine a newcomer like Afghanistan, how difficult it's going to be for them to get test cricket against bigger teams. So the fact that against each other they're only playing 1 test, I think is not great. To me, the obvious explanation is the commercial side of the game. That a test match between Zimbabwe and Afghanistan is not exactly going to generate a lot of revenue, a lot of sponsorships, the TV deal. It's not going to generate a lot. It's going to probably be run at a loss for the Afghanistan Cricket Board, and hence they're only going to do 1 because the limited overs series are much more lucrative for them. And really this comes down to the ICC pumping more money in to allow these teams to host test cricket and mean that they don't run it at a loss, that they're able to at least break even or gain money. But that's another issue for another podcast. But at least there is something. At least there's a start there. But I really would have hoped they would have played at least 2 test matches. But I can't wait to see Afghanistan play test cricket. It's certainly been a long time coming for the test family to grow. And really, I wish them all the best, Afghanistan. And I wish Zimbabwe all the best too, because they were great in Sri Lanka recently. And I really wish that they can go back to the heights that they once were at. So that ends the podcast for today. Another long one. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can check it out. We're on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. You can find the links to those platforms on the Twitter page. And that's it for today. I think the next podcast will be another Hot Topics podcast in the gap before I obviously review the upcoming test matches between Sri Lanka and India, and as well South Africa and England. But yes, that's it for me today. And as always, thanks for listening, and I'll see you later.